But he's also said, if I don't like what Trump has said, and we're in a situation where the cameras are there, I'll call him out. I don't care. I'll call him out. And he is the kind of bloke who will do that.
All right, thanks for joining us. I'm Mike. This is TPL and TPLmedia.ca, TPLmedia.ca local. Soon to be launching our debate room and think tank, and we'll do a show about that upcoming, so that you can understand how you can participate, be part of the community, and chat with us, much like Steve and I are doing right now. He's across the pond in the UK, and always with an eye on the politics and things going on over in the UK. He joins us today. Steve Swift, how are you, my man?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well. Showing the colours, of course. We did get through the semi-finals of the World Cup, I think you'll find, which we're very proud of. But we've had a lot of changes in politics at the moment. Two main changes from different areas of the political spectrum.
Well, first of all, you guys changed prime ministers. If every time you got a new prime minister, it was like the Vatican and smoke came out, it would look like the wildfires of Canada over there. Am I wrong?
No, we've had a lot of prime ministers. I think we've had 7 in 10 years or something like that. I mean, they were mainly Tory prime ministers, but we now have a new Labour prime minister, Mr. Andy Burnham, who I know politically very well because he's been the Greater Manchester Mayor and I'm in Manchester. And we like him in this country.
Yeah, it seems like he has a certain amount of just likability among the population there. I think Keir Starmer had a hard time winning the hearts of Brits. So, okay, here he is, a week into his new job now? And what's the vibe?
The vibe is really good. He's announced some things. I mean, in Manchester and in Greater Manchester, he capped bus fares at £2. So you could hop on, have a journey and hop on again within an hour. Bus riding went up 14% when he did that. We have trams and trains and everything else here. We're quite a modern country. And, we have those and we have penny farthings.
Go, Nick was saying, Nick said that you guys are all still pirates. And
false.
Am I wrong, Nick?
False.
False.
Well,
he hit me twice with the false.
Well, we have penny farthings, of course. We British, of course we do. We still have those. But, bus travel went up 14%. He's now announced that in general. There is a question of how he's going to pay for stuff. He's making some bigger announcements next week about adult social care, which is a massive issue in Britain. We've not been talking about it much recently, but how to pay for it, how to make sure that you don't lose your, if your parents want to pass on their house. And my mother, I'm an only child, my mother wanted to pass on her house. She wanted an inheritance. She sold her house and said, it's all yours, son. And it wasn't, because it paid for her care, which was great. It didn't bother me, but she would have been mortified to know that. So it's about paying for that and announcing a tax that's not going to be called a death tax, which is generally what the British newspapers do. So he's announcing some bigger stuff next week, but we like him. We like him. We think he's, to use a terrible phrase, speaks human, and he's good at that vision thing. And I think I said on this show, he's like Boris Johnson, but from a different angle. Boris Johnson was all the kind of, when this country's marvellous, and people felt better after seeing him. Same thing with Burnham. He did a video recently in which he and his new Chancellor, John Healey, great choice, intelligent man, just rated bar snacks in a pub, and it was wonderful to watch. People like him. He's got a plus 13 rating.
By the way, what won? What was the leading bar snack? Scampi fries?
For John Healey, it was pork scratchings. Do you have pork scratchings over where you are?
No, we've outlawed those long ago. And in fact, you've now you've committed a hate crime. Way to go, Steve.
It's reconstituted pig product, and it's got bristles on it.
Okay.
So that
Okay.
was John Healy's favourite. And although Andy Burnham said anything with a Marmite flavour or a Vegemite or anything like that flavour, Twiglets, that kind of thing, but
Oh,
he
yeah.
chose a crisp called McCoy's that are, they're crispy and ridged and a cut above normal crisps, I would say. So that they won,
Wow.
but it was 2 minutes. Wonderful to see, and simple things like having the packets thrown at them and just grabbing them out of the air. They were very calm together. I mean, compared to Starmer, who we wanted Starmer because we wanted somebody who was a caretaker,
Right.
a bit like Clement Attlee after the war. But Starmer got very boring very quickly for us.
I think that's a lot of what it was. His personality was not there. He didn't have that. So do you think that Burnham then is, I'm going to say it the way you've said it, do you think that he is somewhere a happy medium between Boris Johnson and Keir Starmer, where he has personality, but he's not over the top? He kind of, he's a likable guy, but also has a credible edge.
He does, yeah. He's open and seemingly honest, but he has a learned political basis. He's a political animal. For instance, he's an Everton supporter, and he went to Anfield, Liverpool's ground, and suffered a chant. Not suffered, but there was a chant about justice for the 96 fans who lost their lives in Hillsborough in '89, and he was skewered by that and took it on board. And you could see him saying, yeah, I understand. And then he did something about it. So, he knows what to do. He's a political animal. It's a bloodless coup. And he does have gravitas, but he's got that kind of feeling that he will tell you when he's messed up and that he'll be honest with you. Now, I think once you can confect sincerity, you've got it won. And people might say that, but it does seem as if things don't bother him. He's very open and nice, and he likes New Order. So a lot of Mancunians will like that.
When you say New Order, you mean the band New Order?
The band. That's what I mean.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I'll give him that too. All right. And Spiral Carpets, another Manchester band. I bet they're on the list. I could go on, by the way, with the Manchester band. Okay. Well, this is very interesting to me because really I joked around before the show and I said to you, so what's the deal? Same party, new prime minister. It sounds like you crapped your pants and changed your shirt. What happened over there? Kind of clear this up for me. What do you expect to be different?
I expect that the animal spirits will be different. So he's dealing with a huge hole in the budget. Not much he can do. He will raise taxes. People want taxes on the wealthy. He's probably more open to nationalisation. There's an enormous 70 or 80% in favour of nationalising water. And energy companies. Water should go first, probably, and then the trains. He's open to that sort of thing. So I think that people will just feel that things are better, even though there's no money in their pockets. And Tony Blair did that very well.
Do you perceive, let me ask you a Canadian question, if I may, because you got me there when you...
But he's also said, if I don't like what Trump has said, and we're in a situation where the cameras are there, I'll call him out. I don't care. I'll call him out. And he is the kind of bloke who will do that.
View Mark Carney in the same regard with Trump. Do you think that he's a doesn't take guff from Trump kind of guy? I'm just curious how you perceive him.
Yeah, we do. And remember, he was our governor of the Bank of England. And, I perceived did a really rather good job with a very difficult remit. You didn't hear many headlines. He seemed like someone who was intelligent and could add up and do sums, and long division in his head. Seemed like that kind of bloke. And we like him. I think generally we like him. I don't think that everybody knows who he is, but people who follow politics really rather like him. And I do think that he doesn't take any guff, but I think he plays the political game in a different way to Burnham. I think that Burnham is more open and, hey, I messed up, sorry guys, whereas he's smoother. So I think they're quite similar, but their approach is different.
How do you think they're going to get along? What do you think happens between Canada and the UK now with this prime minister in place?
I think this. I think that it's they will get together because they're both likable, intelligent gentlemen in the political sphere. And they are both politicians to their absolute toenails, aren't they? So I think that they will really get on, and we'll be looking. I mean, I'll spend a lot of time in Canada, I suspect, and vice versa. I think we will have that kind of connection. The Trump thing's interesting, and I take your point about Trump liking being called out and liking an argument. But Burnham doesn't go for that argumentative thing. He doesn't. He's not playground at all. He kind of rises above it. So he's easy to say, okay, then. I once was working on one of his campaigns, in fact, for mayor, I think, if I remember rightly. And I introduced him, because he's got the long eyelashes and all that, I introduced someone to him as, and here's Bambi Burnham. And instead of saying, how dare you, he just went, okay. And that's the kind of guy he is. We like that in this country. Quite apologetic. He's quite apologetic for things. And that works really well for Brits.
Yeah, self-awareness, I think, goes a long way with humans in general. To be able to laugh at yourself, it's a very confident thing to do. Okay, so now you're looking down the barrel of a government that is potentially going to nationalize a bunch of things. Steel. I notice you've got your Brit Steel mug there, and I would imagine that is one of the targets on the list. I think that's actually done. That's a done deal, right?
Starmer did this.
Yeah, which is an interesting thing. What do you think about nationalizing different major projects within the country? And where do you think that leaves you, Steve? Let's say 10, 15 years down the road.
The problem with nationalisation is that it's about whether you can put the genie back in the bottle. There are two things. Whether you can put that genie back in the bottle, whether that's going to provide you with, well, it's not going to provide you with profits immediately. So you're going to be looking at, 2 or 3 or even 4 electoral cycles, and that's not what we do anymore. Plus, it's an open checkbook. You're back to Labour's 1974 manifesto when they had 100 companies or 200 companies at the beginning, when you opened the page, that they were going to nationalise. And it was all about picking winners. And they didn't pick that many. When you think about British Leyland and all of that. So it's about how you do this. Bear in mind that Gordon Brown did this with very little outcry when he bought Network Rail track back into Network Rail and said to shareholders, here's your cash, you get this, your value of your shares can go up as well as down. Nobody called for his head. And
no, and that is actually that's a world renowned and often duplicated model for nationalism. Okay, here's how the profit comes out. Here's where we end up. Here's our over. I mean, we just opened a bridge to the U.S. here in Canada. I don't know if you heard about this, the Gordie Howe Bridge. We've eaten $6.5 billion in constructing this thing, and we've decided that after net operation costs of running it every year, we'll still give 50% to the U.S., who has no interest in paying off the overall build and debt of this bridge. Okay, so, we did Petro-Canada, and we talked about that on this network several times. We've done Petro-Canada. It was one of the biggest success stories in Canadian economic history. It brought our resources and our economy and our export expertise to the world. Our exploration was top notch. Oh, we sold it. We create the 407 here in Ontario, which is a toll highway. We sell it. This is the danger, I think, when you say picking a winner, being left with the dregs and selling off the top end of the cream seems like what happens when you have to wait 15, 20 years in several terms and several electoral periods.
Yeah, I think that he'll have an easier time of it because there's such a push to say, on private companies with water is a real issue. Pumping sewage into rivers and the sea is a massive issue.
Well, Steve, stop there. Start with the water. I mean, the last time this happened, it was by necessity, and it seems like privatizing it again is also by necessity based on our last conversation.
Yeah, it is. And that'll make it much easier to nationalise. So in a way, you're not picking winners. You're picking what people want. And that's a populist prime minister, isn't it?
Right.
So if he says, you want water nationalised, okay, I'm going to do it. It's going to be difficult and you're going to have to work with me. But there's 80%, if I remember rightly, 70 to 80% positivity on that when people are asked.
Right.
So that's a good one for him to start with. And he is quite bold. I mean, he said, we're drilling in the North Sea. We are now drilling again in the North Sea. They were dancing in the streets of Aberdeen in Scotland because that's where the majority of that infrastructure will be.
Yeah,
He will drill in the
employment.
North Sea.
Yeah.
So, yeah, all the employment. So he's bold. He can be quite bold. And I think people want that because they perceive that Starmer wasn't, even though he was bolder than you think. I mean, who would have thought he would nationalise British Steel? He didn't need to. Could have let it wither on the vine. I mean, so many other steel plants have, but he nationalised it. He was bold, but people didn't see that. Burnham's going to get the word out because people like him.
You can't be a paper tiger in this era, unfortunately. I mean, your history can't be what you can't wait for your history. You actually, especially in an era where the news is so scant. I don't know about in the UK. Journalism here, it's so sad. I just got a notification from the Canadian Association of Journalism, and they have a seminar going on how to cope with the idea that you're no longer needed in society as a journalist. That's the association's response to this. We're done. So that's the era here. If it's the same in the UK, you are dealing with really limited clips of communication with the civilian population and the voters and the people who make a difference. You've got them on TikTok and Instagram and a little bit on Facebook and on YouTube. And I mean, Steve, really, you and I are on YouTube right now, and we really shouldn't be put in charge of running any country. So I think that's part of the challenge, is that if you don't have a big bolster about your own agenda and what you've accomplished, nobody's going to know. And I don't think Starmer did a good job of that.
No, he didn't. And it was all quite corporate. So it was all, his social media game was basically, well, I can see that's come from Labour. Burnham's media game is different. So, from the snacks in the pub and all of that and ideas around that, he's got his own social media, very open. He's such a likeable guy that he doesn't need to set anything up. He can just say, hello, everybody. Here I am walking around. People like it. And he's waited a long time to be Prime Minister. He's tried to be leader of the Labour Party twice, failed ignominiously both times, and then became the King of the North, as we call him, as London Mayor. So he's waited a long time. One of the first things he's done is to devolve some of those government departments to Manchester, number 10 North, which is, that's a bold.
That's a very bold thing to do, frankly.
Huge.
And it's necessary. I mean, we watched it happen in Canada, where we took elements of the federal government and put them in strategic points where it would, offset mining towns with other jobs, so that the rest of the populace could live in those areas. And our government taxation department is right here in Ontario, and it's far north in Sudbury. It's about 4 hours north of the border. So it does seem to work. Whether it adds or reduces efficiency really is not the issue. It's what it does for those communities, what it does overall for the economy there.
Yeah, and it makes a big comment, doesn't it? It was his first week and he said, I'm doing this. He didn't seem to have to ask people, this is my idea and I will do it. And actually, it happened so quickly. He announced it seemingly at the beginning of the week. By the Friday of last week, he was there in the offices welcoming people and opening it. It's extraordinary this has happened. It's almost as if they were preparing for it before he arrived.
That sounds like exactly what was going on. Be careful of this, people. If he's that good, it could be staged. Steve, let's have some fun, shall we? I want to challenge you to something. Here's what I've done. See if you want to play along with this. I put a prompt into ChatGPT prior to the show. And here's what I gave it. I've got my boy Steve Swift from the UK coming on the show today to tell me what's what with the new UK government. Give me 6 killer fun questions to ask. And the response, by the way, from ChatGPT was very charming. Steve's good on his feet. These should generate a lively discussion. Not that you and I need discussion points to get things going, but I thought this was kind of fun. You mind if I go through these?
Of course, I'd be delighted. This sounds very interesting for me.
I think AI is much better at interviewing. So let's see how it does. Question number 1, AI asks, if someone had been asleep for the past 2 years and woke up in Britain today, what are the 3 biggest changes they'd notice immediately? Great question.
That's huge.
You
Probably reform the populist right-wing party's march, even though I have to tell you now, it's stopping. We've reached peak reform. So yeah, we'll talk about that another time, but that's stopping. Probably, I think probably a split in voters between the younger voters who will vote Green in general in the cities, and older voters in the towns and countryside that would vote Tory or Reform.
Okay.
And probably that nothing has happened as a result of Brexit, except we've all got poorer.
Okay. Man, AI is doing okay, huh, Nick? Not bad.
False.
How about this one? By the way, I wanted to make a nice image of you and I to share right now, but then it said to me that I had to subscribe. But here we go. On a scale from new direction to same old politics, how different do you think the new government will actually feel to the ordinary Brit? We kind of covered this, but...
Yeah, it will feel as if it's communitarian, so we're all in it together, aren't we? It will feel quite northern. So there'll be a kind of welcoming, open-hearted feel to it. And there'll be a feel that actually, if you tell me that's crap, and I feel it is, I'll say, yeah, that's crap. And if it's a policy that you think, yeah, that's crap, then I'll be honest with you. So that kind of open warmth about, look, that's what politicians start with, isn't it? Look,
it is. Yeah.
I'm just like you. I don't get it right all the time. I'm a bit crap at times. I'm a bit geeky. I support Everton Football Club and I've got a season ticket. I like New Order. I'm probably a little bit geeky, but you know what? I'm having a go. And it does seem like someone you could have a pint with, a bit like Nigel Farage from Reform, but totally different.
All right, hold on a second. I better do this just to represent the Canadian part of AI.
Nice.
AI Canadian asks, this is good. What's the issue that everyone in Britain is arguing about right now that Canadians probably haven't even heard of?
I mean, people are still arguing about the boats. You've heard of that, though, surely.
Oh, Bodie McBoatface and why we named it that.
Yeah.
That argument?
This is a different kind of boats. People are talking about migration at the moment. What people are talking about in this country, and I don't know whether or not this is my algorithms, and also I don't know whether or not this is something you're talking about where you are in Canada, but they're talking about the lurch to the right because we have acceptable right, I suppose, with Reform, and then further right parties like Restore and things like that.
Sort of a more moderate, easy to participate in right. A little bit of social conscience alongside conservatism.
Yeah, that's kind of Reform. Restore would be further right than that. So we're seeing that. We're seeing a resurgence of that kind of popular right, which I thought would last a lot longer. And at the moment, that's not tanking into the toilet, but it's not doing as well as it did. And then the splitting of the right vote by further right parties. So if people say, Reform, I voted for them because there was something different. Now they're just councillors and MPs. And he wants to be the Prime Minister, Nigel Farage. So he's establishment. I'm going to go for Reform because they are outliers. So we're going to get a lot of new, smaller, far right, I believe, outlier parties.
The outlier parties, though, they are full of previous politicians, members of parliament that have almost splintered. That's my understanding? Or are these completely new individuals to politics?
Reform is full of conservative, ex-conservative party members and MPs. The far right parties are not. So they are, grassroots parties, but configured as parties. So they're not kind of, we're going on a demo. Let's have that kind of grouping. They are a political party, but they are not people who are, one of them has a party and he's an MP, but generally you wouldn't get those kind of MPs in those further right parties, but you would get them in Reform.
In the Reform, the new Reform, I guess.
Yeah, they're kind of acceptable, right? Although the left wing would rail against them, but a lot of people think they speak.
That was my next question. It's hard to argue when you're that close to the center, isn't it?
It is. And one thing that I was podcasting about a while ago was that because Starmer's got a plus 13 rating, Nigel Farage has got a minus 22 rating, which is never, it's never been that low, I don't think, not for quite some time. And he's in a lot of trouble at the moment. So he's got a very low rating. And Kenny Badenoch, who is the leader of the Conservatives, who seemed to be down and out a while ago, is up there just positive. And that's incredible. And we might be coming back to two-party politics in Britain after dipping our toe in the water for smaller parties like Reform and the Greens. And I think if that's the case, it's because Andy Burnham is kind of, hey guys, look at me with my T-shirt under my jacket and that kind of thing, a New Order and all that, is very different to Kenny Badenoch, who's kind of posh, very smooth, very, very kind of battened down, quite Thatcherite. And I think people like that Punch and Judy thing, even though we say we don't. I think we like that kind of very different across the dispatch box.
It's just a lot easier to define politics in your mind, in that. And unfortunately, and I recommend you don't do it, we basically have a two-party system here in Canada that, kind of leaves us. There's such a divide. It almost feels like often the opposition is doing nothing. And now we have a majority in power in the Liberals that it's difficult for us to see the opposition make any real change. By the way, the last two questions were not AI. That's why they didn't sound so eloquent. No, I don't like that one. Okay, I'll tell you what, we'll finish up on this one. What is the biggest myth Canadians have about Britain today? Is it that blood pudding is delicious?
It could be, because it is delicious, I believe, and I know a lot of people don't, and there's a lot of English people who don't, but I think it's absolutely delicious and should be part of your breakfast every day.
That is nonsense. I don't think that's good for your health. Don't take advice on this.
But listen, it gets worse because we have white pudding as well. So we call it black pudding here, and we have white pudding, which is greasier and even worse for your arteries.
I actually think I'd probably prefer that one, to be honest with you, just because I don't like that some people call black pudding blood pudding. That's disgusting to me. But I will say this. I will take beans and bangers any day of the week, any meal of the day. It don't matter. And put hollandaise sauce on all of it, if you don't mind. So I got you.
I love that.
But what do you think? What's the biggest misconception Canadians have right now about Britain or the British?
It's probably that we are genteel and nothing gets us riled up, because it's kind of a bit after you, no after you. I lay my handkerchief down so you can walk over it. And we're not like that now. So nothing has really kicked off yet. And I thought in the summer with all of the hot weather, I thought then we're going to have riots. And I keep saying this, and we haven't recently, but people get out on the street now. And generally, it is about migrants and migrant hotels and that kind of thing. And it's a right-wing push. But and there's exploitation going on in that, I firmly believe. But we do get out we do get out now. We do get out and we get, we have those rallies and those counter marches, all of that.
And really for soccer, for sport, the World Cup even, it's so fun because my wife is Mexican. And so, of course, it was a glorious moment for the Brits there in Mexico. But everybody get along beautifully, and it was just wonderful to see how excited the British were just to be part of the World Cup and how gracious they were abroad to participate. It was very cool to watch from here.
Yeah, I mean, we don't expect much, and we got through to the semi-final, and I don't think, for me personally, our manager, Thomas Tuchel's tactics is what I keep saying, because you don't put two defenders on and say to a team like Argentina, just attack us for 30 minutes as if we're not going to get tired, Right. So don't do that. I think, personally, that a manager of his caliber, I thought he got frightened. I thought he got frightened of the Argentinians and then said, I'll put loads of defenders on. And it's like that animal spirits thing, isn't it, with Andy Burnham? If you put defenders on, people are going to say, I don't think he trusts us. Whereas if you put an attacker on and went, come on, lads, you can do it. I think we'd have that British Tommy spirit. But it's the same thing with Andy Burnham. When he says, this country is great, he doesn't say it like Boris Johnson.
No, he says it like, come on, this is great. I have noticed that. I do think he has a genuine spirit about what he's doing. And he's been in politics long enough now that it's a job. So if he loves his job, what can you do? Yeah,
absolutely. And he's wanted this. And he's very modest about it, but it's clear he's wanted this for so long, and it's come true for him, and he can't quite believe it at the moment. But he's made some really big moves, and he's doing all right. It's difficult because I've got an awful lot of people who would follow reform on my algorithms because I talk to them and say this is it from my point of view because I'm not of that area. And what they've got is, well, he still looks like the mayor of Manchester and he's just having a good time. That's all they've got. And I want my prime minister to look as if he's having a good time, not to look as if he's passing a very difficult turd, which is what Keir Starmer always looked like. He always looked like it was a bit of a spiky turd or stool coming out. So, always. I don't want him to look like that. I don't want him to, because he was always like this.
He got very specific, but still it sounded so polite. So you have to understand our perspective. That was very polite of you. You know what? We've missed our opportunity for the moment. But if you think Steve Swift should be the next Prime Minister of the UK, I want you to put it in the comments. And any other questions I missed or my ChatGPT missed, I want you to participate in this. Steve, you're a lovely guy. I'm delighted to see you. And before summer's out, let's do this again.
Absolutely. And I just have to say, vote for me, good for you, good for Britain.
Wow, you've even got a slogan, huh? All right, well done. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll catch you next time right here on tplmedia.ca. Until then, take care.
Looking for reliable and convenient personal safety products? Less Lethal has you covered. As Canada's only authorized Byrna distributor, we provide a range of products for recreation, protection, and security. Explore our Byrna launcher lineup, including the LE, SD, TCR, and Mission 4, designed for different levels of performance and protection needs. We also offer the Banshee personal safety alarm, designed to protect children, women, and vulnerable individuals. Because your safety is our top priority. Shop now at lesslethal.ca.